Hey MSU Yu-Gi-Oh! I'm here with Eli, who took first place at the Indy Regionals this past weekend. Eli, do you want to show us what you were playing?
For sure. I am on Dragon Link.
Awesome.
We've got the rocket engine to start with. We've got the Abstrader, 2 tracers, pretty standard at this point. Recharger for the grab off tracer. Synchron for the additional name, quick launch because it's broken. Some lists have been dropping Synchron. The normal effect came up multiple times, where like normal grab like an Abstrader or an Activision to make an additional Synchro 8. It does lock you in the darks, but it came up multiple times, and I think it's still worth running over like Caliber or like Magna Rocket or some other name. And then the boot sector that we searched, because I forgot it was at the top of the deck. Then we've got the Bestial Engine, we've got 2 Lubellion, 3 Magnamoot, 2 Sarnier, Baldrake, Druis, and Regain Beast. 2 Lubellion, 3 is I think more standard. I only have 2. I think 2 might be better. There are multiple times where I just drew 2 Lubellion or like already had a Lubellion in rotation and then top decked another Lubellion. I guess I would have drawn it more often if I had 3, but 2 is fine. 3 Magnamoot because it's the best card in the deck, especially if you can summon it out turn 1 and just search any dragon on your opening turn. I've seen some lists that run 3 Sarnier. I've seen some lists that run 1 Sarnier. It's a good draw if it's your turn. It's just, you never really want to draw 2, and you don't really want to draw it if you're going second. Druis is just a good search off Magnamoot because the Branded Beast can get rid of both. I've seen some lists that don't run Baldrake, but I think Baldrake's worth running just because if you don't get the Beast in rotation, then you can still Baldrake to say send a Druis, and then you get to remove 2 from field. Especially because sometimes you're not going to get the Beast in rotation because instead you're grabbing Regained. I must have won at least 3 matches just because I made the decision, or I guess not matches, at least like 3 games because I made the decision to Lubellion grab Regain instead of grab Beast because I just expected it to be a grind game and I didn't expect Beast to do much against the deck. So you grab Regain instead, and then you grab Baldrake off Magnamoot because you don't have a way to pop the Druis anyway, so you're not grabbing Druis.
Did you ever find the Bestials coming up like that often against decks that weren't necessarily like, cash, where you actually used the quick effect Banish from Grave?
Absolutely. Bestials were kind of the meta call that people were just going to not think they'd see Bestials. I played against multiple Math Mechs, Dark World. It came up a couple times against like Kashtira because he shifted me. I did lose that match, but he shifted me and then I Magnamoot to get like a dragon on my turn. They're just good. I'm getting rid of a dark. I mean, the Crow effect, it just stops a lot of decks that think that they are that became good once Bestials dropped off because they didn't expect to see Bestials anymore.
Okay.
The next engine is the Chaos Dragon stuff. 3 Safer, 3 Chaos Space, 2 Baby Dragons, Levy, Nocto, the Red Eyes, and Ravine. So obviously Chaos Space is insane. Chaos Space Abstrader is like usually just a win. It's just ridiculous. Like it's basically a Pot of Greed. 3 Safer, it's just a slightly worse Chaos Space because you have to normal it. It can dodge Imperm if you think they have Imperm, or if you draw the Abstrader, you're searching the Noctivision. Baby Dragons are just standard because, sometimes you're saferding to add like a Lubellion or a Levinier. Sometimes you're saferding because you don't have a starter, so you're grabbing the Baby Dragons. Black Metal is just an additional normal. Sometimes you're grabbing it off a tomb. Sometimes you're resummoning it from Pisty to grab the Red MD. But it's just nice for consistency because there were times before I added this back in where I would just brick because I didn't draw a starter. And then the Red MD is ridiculous. If you have nothing better to send off Ravine, you can send the Red MD and then revive it with the Pisty. If you can make a tomb, you're almost always summoning the Red MD. Either that or you're summoning the Safer to get like the rest of the combo started. If you just like break on Bestials, like you go Bestial, make it a tomb, summon a Safer, and then you send the Safer to get the Baby Dragons. And then you also still have a Safer in graveyard, so you can Ravine, send a Lubellion instead, and then you Safer add a Lubellion. And then the Noctivision is just another incredible card where it's just like if you draw a Safer Abstrader, you're usually adding the Noctivision over adding like the Baby Dragons because you're getting the draw, especially if you also have like Chaos Space. We've got the hand traps. We're on 3 Ash. This is obviously for branded. It came up a couple times against other decks. Obviously, it's Ash Blossom, but I never actually saw branded. But I still think this is worth playing just because it's Ash Blossom and Joyous Spring. We've got 3 Nib. This is obviously for Cashier. A lot of people were playing around Nib, but I still think it's worth playing, especially because it's a light for Chaos Space. It's just generally good. Nib, I mean, everyone was on Nib, and some people just weren't playing around it. So a lot of games just became like, I have Nib and you have Nib, and now we're both entering a grind game where we have like 1 card in hand and who can get the combo first. And because we have branded Regained, Regained is good for playing through Nib because it's gonna resummon a Bestial when they summon the token, and it's also going to let us grind if we both have a Nib in hand and we both just don't have a board at the end of the turn. 3 Imperm. This used to be Veilers. That was because I didn't have Imperms. But then once I got Imperms, I wasn't so sure if I wanted to keep running the Veilers or not. But it's pretty clearly just Imperm being better. The only reason you'd consider Veilers is if you're going turn 1 and you open Magnemute and Veiler, you can banish the Veiler if they're unlike Kashtira and there's nothing to banish. Last card is the Albaz. Big fan of the Albaz tech. It single-handedly won me, like, I guess not single-handedly, but it was the reason I won, like, at least 2 matches. It just gives your spheres so much more staying power. Where you use spheres, you bounce something, you summon the Albaz, you discard a card, because often you have extra cards at the end of your turn that like aren't hand traps. And then you discard, you fuse with a guy for another removal, you make Mirror Jade for another removal. And then there were even a couple games where I would Mirror Jade to, I Mirror Jade to banish something, I get the Albion in graveyard, I'm only running 1 Albion. And then I reset the Albion with Regained. So I banish it with a Bestial, put it back in the extra deck, and then I have Mirror Jade back up. It's just so fun. Regain lets you recycle so much stuff. The extra is pretty standard. We've got Striker Pisty for your Link 1s, Romulus Spheres IP, Dark for the Link 2s. Striker is just the standard boot grabber. Then you go into Romulus, set up the Pisty with the Triple Burst. Spheres is what you're ending on usually if you get nibbed, or what I like to do is if I draw nibs, sometimes I'll just end on spheres even if I have the rest of the combo in hand, because there aren't really any decks that can play through spheres nib, especially if you have the branded back row up. You're just going to outgrind them. It's essentially like the branded Bestial or the Bestial control variant where you're making spheres with a bunch of hand traps in hand and Bestial and the branded spell traps in the field, but instead you have the nib, so it's just that strong. IP came up 1 time to make Unicorn. It's worth considering, I guess. Sometimes I would make IP if it was like in the grind game and I had the ability to still make Unicorn. I think it did come up once, so it's not the worst card in the extra deck, or I don't know, maybe it is. Dark came up simply because some people run Darks, but also because it has the arrows. Sometimes I would make Dark even though I would even if they didn't have Darks in the graveyard, just because it has the Romulus arrows, and I didn't want to burn like a Romulus or the spheres. Like if I drew the Ravine. So like I'd look at the graveyard, I'd see they don't have Darks, I'd make Dark anyways, and then my opponent would just check their graveyard to make sure. It was very funny. You've got the Unicorn, I already mentioned this. The Triple Burst to line up the arrows with the Pisty. And then by far the best card that you can summon in the deck is Borland. There are a lot of decks that just can't out this. Kashtira, going first in the Kashtira, this is maybe the main reason that you have the advantage going first. They just have trouble outing Borland. They've got Kashtira, Scareclaw, and Zeus, and that's pretty much all they have other than like Imperm, if they want to start the turn with Imperm. And you can keep them off one of them, and then if they go for the other one, you can try like Branded Beast it. Sometimes the Kashtira matchup just becomes Protect the Towers, and it's just a strong card in general. There's lots of decks that just can't out it. I had multiple people try and run over it in battle, which is funny. A Tomb is very good to stop you from breaking up Bestials. It's also very good for extending. Any card that reads Summon a Dragon from deck is probably worth considering in Dragon Link. This is the Time card. It came up 0 times for time, but it did come up to make lethal once. It almost came up in time, but I didn't have time. This was the one loss. It was game 3 against Kashtira. I had like 0 seconds left going into main phase 1. I would have had lethal if I like made Scarlight popped cards and then attacked to like, or not lethal. I would have been a draw, I think, but there just wasn't a way I was making it, so I conceded. Savage is extremely good. You're usually ending on Spheres, Borland, Savage if they don't do anything, or if they do stuff, you're usually ending on either Spheres, Savage, or Borland, Savage, depending on what you think would be better for the deck. Barone is just a great card going second. You're almost never making it going first, but going second, if you make it with like a Druis, you're usually outing their whole board. Just because it's like Druis Tracer, make Barone, Druis send something, Barone pop something, Barone negate something. It's extremely good. Albion Mirror Jade, it's just really Albaz stuff. Mirror Jade obviously is like the main reason that you're running the Albaz things, but the Albion also has the effect to put the regain on the field. If you like really just brick and you can only end on Spheres, you can still make Albaz, Mirror Jade banish something, and then get the branded stuff cooking because you can reset the or you get the Albion effect to put the regain on the field. The side deck didn't come up that often, honestly, but we're on 3 Contact C. This is for branded, which I didn't see, but it also came up one game against a Kashtira player to keep them off lethal because although they still had their normal, I Contact C'd them on Fenrir. And then instead of searching Rise Heart, they went and searched Ogre to tribute over the Contact C. But it kept them off Rise Heart, which meant they couldn't just make their entire board and beat over and win the game that turn. I still think I lost that game though, so I guess it didn't matter. Book of Moon and Eclipse. I don't think I ever drew Book of Moon, but it's just good to have for Kashtira if they plan on playing around Nib. And then Eclipse did come up a couple times against Kashtira players. Just obviously generally a good card going second to Kashtira. You'll notice that 12 cards in the side deck are for Kashtira. This deck's worst matchup by far is Kashtira, so I figured I would just fill the side deck with Kashtira hate. And I guess it worked out. I think I played against 3 Kashtira players, one of which was Scareclaw Kashtira. But the side deck being prepared for Kashtira does kind of help alleviate the deck's weaknesses. And the last 3 is just back row removal. Generally for like Labyrinth, cards that only want to make 1 back row, or just like it came up a couple times where I would like for Runic or like Math Mech, where like decks that it's still just worth putting in for the singleton back row. So that's everything.
Cool. Well, what were your matchups that you played against at regionals? Do you remember?
Oh, I was trying to memorize it right before this, but I think it was, first was Grant, who was on Math Mech, and then Naturia Runic, Dark World, Sprite. I think that one was pure Sprite, but he was running Fenrir, so we started with Fenrir, and I was like, oh no, it's Kashtira, but it was Sprite. And then something, I don't remember the order, but it was Sword Soul, Sprite again, Kashtira, and then Math Mech, and then Kashtira Scareclaw for round 10.
Yeah, I heard it was a really big regional, something like over 600 players or something.
Somewhere, it was somewhere in that, over 500, over 600.
Yeah, that's crazy. You guys
Over
had 10
10
rounds. Yeah. Well, congratulations on your win. Did you want to give any shout outs?
Yeah, I can start by, this is kind of silly, but I'll start by shout-outing my friends on the Dad as Heck Twitch Discord. They're just awesome boys, and I love playing casual games with them. I love bothering about my stupid TCG decisions. And as I went through the day, I was like, I'm 3-0, that's pretty crazy. And I was like, I'm 5-0, this is ridiculous. And it's like, I'm 7-0, what's going on? And then obviously, shout out for the MSU boys. We all went together for Indy. Grant drove us all. Grant set everything up. We all talked about theory and stuff together and practiced and talked to each other about side deck options and main deck options. And it was just a great time.
Awesome. Well, thanks for the deck profile, Eli.
Yeah.